Hello guys and gals, welcome back to another episode of Haunted Gaming. This time we go back to do another Sonic creepypasta called Tales of Abuse. This creepypasta begins with the player telling us how he or she loved classic Sega games such as Revenge of the Shinobi, Sonic, and Streets of Rage. But according to the player, something had occurred that made the player change his or her entire perspective about these classic games. One night at around 3 in the morning, the player was playing Sonic 2 on an emulator. The player chose both Sonic and Tails as the playable characters, and started to play up to the point of the chemical plant zone. The player eventually got bored and looked around the levels for some enemies to fight, such as the Grabber and Spinies. The player used Tails since he was invincible and imitated every move Sonic made according to the player. So the player would make several steps toward the enemy and run back once attention was gained, leaving Tails behind. After several times, something weird had occurred and Tails' animation had changed to a drowning one. Also, the sound was different and sounded like when your character would touch spikes without having any rings. The player waited for Tails to reappear, but he never did. The player had reset the game and everything had appeared to be normal, except for the game logo where Sonic and Tails were smiling, and according to the player, Tails was just missing. Even Sonic had a weird reaction, like he was scared or depressed or something. So the player started to get scared and believed that this was more than an emulator glitch, but then again decided to ignore it and continue playing. So, this time the player couldn't even pick both Sonic and Tails. Instead, the player only had one choice: Sonic. The other two choices were just completely missing. Till the game started on Emerald Hill Zone, and noticed Sonic's sprite began to look a little weird, as if Sonic was just uncomfortable. The player got creeped out to the point where he or she quit the emulator and went to play the actual Sega Genesis. Now, why the player didn't play the Genesis to begin with, we'll never know. The game started and Sega's logo this time was red, and the sound was unusually louder. The player tried to believe this was because the console was just simply old and it was prone to various malfunctions. But despite all of this, the rest of the game was quite normal, and Tails was there again, and everything looked completely okay, so the player was relieved and began to play and just calmed down. Upon reaching the boss, the player had no rings, and accidentally let Tails get hit by Robotnik's vehicle. The game froze and the player began to freak out, but reset the Genesis. This time the screen was now white. There was no Sega logo or sprites or sounds for that matter. There was simply nothing. At this point the player quit and decided to shut off the console, but before shutting it off a text box had appeared. The player never saw such a thing in the game and was surprised by what the text box contained. It simply read, "You killed him." The player tried pressing random buttons, but nothing had happened. The player tried to turn off the console, but again couldn't, and couldn't even turn off the TV. So the fear was growing rapidly, and then another text box had appeared, this time stating, "You destroyed his life. Are you going to try to destroy mine too? Are you having fun? Are you?" So the player pressed the A button and was teleported to the chemical plant zone. This time the background was different and a lot darker than before, and appeared to possibly be blood? So the music was reversed and it was slowed, and only Sonic was there, and the gameplay was normal, but whenever an enemy was defeated, instead of a fleeing bunny or something along those lines, it was just one of those animals lying in a pool of blood, torn apart. At the end of the stage, Sonic began running on his own for about 2 minutes until stopping and a text box appearing which stated, "Are you ready? Ready to see what you've done to him?" The player asked themselves what he or she could have even done to Tails. Did the player kill him? No, that sounds silly, right? Another text box appeared asking the player yes or no, but despite choosing no, the player eventually realized the game wouldn't let him or her pick no, so they had to pick yes. The screen faded to black, and after a few seconds, an image of Tails' corpse appeared, full of wounds and guts thrown around everywhere, eyes missing. The image was so realistic the player almost vomited. Another text box appeared stating, "I hope you're happy. You killed me. Were you having fun with it? I know you were. Do you want to do it again? Play with me again? I'm just a simple toy for you. A simple toy. For all of you." The player felt some sort of guilt and wondered if Tails was really in pain. After that, the player never touched another retro game, and every time a video game character died, the player always remembered what happened that night. Something that he or she will never forget. Well, another Sonic creepypasta bites the dust. As far as what I thought about this creepypasta, I thought it was pretty decent. Granted, there were the usual cliches such as a player telling us right at the beginning how much he or she loved classic Sega games, but then again, they don't ruin the experience to the point where we need to complain about them. What I liked about this creepypasta was the somewhat unique story with Tails. You know, I for one never really played the Sonic series as much as I should have, but I always wondered about poor little Tails, you know, being the forefront of many Sonic creepypastas. But in retrospect, I remember playing Sonic, you know, running extremely fast and leaving Tails in the dust, and waiting as he slowly came in using his helicopter tail. I guess maybe this might be the consequence of leaving the guy behind all the time. I guess the player was just using Tails without any regard for the guy's life and ended up ruining the character, similar to Audino from the Audino Wants to Play With You creepypasta. Constant torment just leading to the downfall of such a happy character. Now tell me what you think. You know, there were some things I disliked, such as a switch from the emulator to the actual Sega Genesis. I don't know, but if I had the actual game on the Genesis, why would I play it on the emulator if it were just close by to me? Like, I'd play the real thing. It just seemed a little odd to me personally. There was also gore, but it wasn't too overused like some other creepypastas we've done, and I actually didn't kill the overall experience. And I also wish some things were expanded on, you know, to add a little bit more build-up to the creepypasta, but overall I found this to be fairly enjoyable, and despite its flaws, I think it's okay, and I recommend you all to go check it out. Links in the description below. In the end, what would you rate this, and what would you change to make it better? This has been another episode of Haunted Gaming, and if you like what you saw, then like, comment, and subscribe. This is me, Mudhar, from Some Ordinary Gamers, and I'm out.